Objectives describe how an ecosystem's biotic potential and environmental resistance can affect population growth. Examine various interactions of organisms in nature. Identify density, dependent, and independent factors affecting populations. Discuss environmental resistance and balance in nature. Before we start, first is to guess what is in the picture.
What you need to know. Populations differ in factors such as their distribution, numbers, age structure, or proportions of individuals in different age groups, growth patterns and density, or number of individuals in a certain space. Recall that there are three general patterns of population distribution or dispersion observed in a natural habitat. These are clumping, uniform dispersion, and random dispersion. The next slide will show you the three general patterns of population distribution or dispersion observed in a natural habitat.
In most population, individual of a species live together in a clumps or patches. Examples are patches of desert vegetation around springs, flock of birds, and school of fish. Why clumping? The the resources a species need vary greatly in availability from place to place. So they tend to cluster where the resources are available. When moving in groups, individuals have a better chance of encountering patches or clumps of resources, such as water and vegetation, than they would searching for the resources on their own. Living in groups protects some animals from predators while some species form temporary groups for mating and caring for young. Biotic potential and environmental resistance. Over the time, the number of individuals in a population may increase, decrease, remain about the same, or go up and down in cycles in response to changes in environmental conditions. Four variables are accounted for: changes in population size, births, deaths, immigration, and emigration.
The ability or capacity of a population of a species to grow or propagate under ideal environmental conditions given sufficient food supply, no diseases, and no predators present is called biotic potential. This state of highest reproductive power varies widely among species due to genetic and life history differences. Generally, populations of species with large individuals, such as elephants and blue whales, have a low biotic potential, while those of small individuals, such as bacteria and insects, have high biotic potential. It is said that primary factors that determine biotic potential includes an organism's rate of reproduction and number of offspring produced at one birth. Some organisms have an outstanding biotic potential. For example, a species of bacteria with no control on population growth can reproduce every 20 minutes and would generate to enough offspring to form a 1 foot deep layer over the entire Earth's surface in 36 hours. Unfortunately, this is not a realistic scenario. Research reveals that no population can grow definitely because of limitations on resources and competition with populations of other species for those resources. These factors that prevent populations from reaching their full biotic potential is collectively known as environmental resistance. Environmental resistance is the combination of all factors that can act to limit the growth of a population. These factors includes abiotic and biotic factors that limit the organism from endlessly increasing its population. Biotic factors include predation, competition, parasitism, and diseases. Abiotic factors include climatic conditions, fire, and temperature. Some of the common examples of environmental resistance include the availability of water and predatory prey relationship. Water is an important resource that producers need for growth. If the producers do not grow in an ecosystem, then the consumers in such ecosystem cannot be sustained. Dynamics of predator to prey populations contribute to environmental resistance. For instance, if the predator population is low, we can expect that the prey's population is high and vice versa.
Most of the environmental resistance are and density dependent, etc. Their effects are the most pronounced when the population density increases beyond a certain level. In other words, whose effects on the size or growth of population vary with the population density. The types of density depends on factors include availability of foods, reproduction, disease, and migration. However, food availability is considered as the main factor. Density-independent factors on the other hand can affect the population without being necessary based on the density. They include the natural disaster, droughts, floods, hurricanes, and fires, temperatures, sunlight, seasonal cycle, human activities, and level of acidity, site, among many others. In this slide, it explains of how environment grow, especially in the biotic resources, what we called food for the biotic. It depends of the resources of the environment that can make the population growth, and also consider the factors that can affect the population being necessary based on the density. For example, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, fires, temperature, sunlight, seasonal cycle, and human activities. This natural disaster or natural season, it can also affect the resources of the biotic. So it is important to know this. Then some of the common example of environmental resistance includes the availability of water and predator-prey relationship. Water is an important resource that producers need for growth. If the producers do not grow in an ecosystem, then the consumer in such ecosystem cannot be sustained. Dynamic of predator-prey population contribute to the environmental resistance. For instance, if the predator population is low, we can affect that the prey population is high and vice versa. In this slide, it explains that resources is mostly needed, especially water, especially in the ecosystem of a biotic. For example, let's say for the animals, it's came for the egg, it eat grass or insects, it grows. Then after that, when the chicken is big, it can also reproduce egg. It's like a circle that going again and again. That's what we call ecosystem. It cannot sustain if there is no consumer, and producer. So that is the importance of ecosystem, especially in Earth. Together, biotic potential and environmental resistance determine the carrying capacity K, which is defined as the maximum population of a given species that a particular habitat can sustain indefinitely without being degraded. The growth rate of the population decreases at its size near the carrying capacity of its environmental because resources such as food, water, and space being too dwindling. In the graph below, the carrying capacity is the portion of the graph in which the population pollutes. This is where the rate at which replenished resources of an ecosystem is equal to the number of organisms being born. It is the population exceed the carrying capacity of its environment. It is called overshoot. One reason is when the reproductive log time, or the time is take for the birth rate to decrease and death rate to increase, the response limit resources takes place. When this happens, a population can collapse since there are limited resources space. When the population of the organism is below carrying capacity, the available resources can sustain the needs of the population. In this slide, it shows that the environmental resources. If the environment's resources is limited, it must be the population is also limited, because if the population is growing or increasing, and if the resources is decreasing, it can cause harm for the ecosystem, such as death, diseases, or maybe it can collapse the ecosystem of that environment if the resources is decreasing and it's not sustained.
Evaluation, multiple choice. Choose the letter of the best answer. Enumeration. Give the answers to the following question.